Back to Fox Top story now. President Trump says he is not obstructing justice in the Russia investigation, just defending himself.
There's no collusion. Now they're saying, oh, well, did he fight back?
But what
fight back. Is there,
what is collusion?
Sir, fight back. John, fight back. Oh, it's obstruction.
Fighting back? Oh, it's obstruction. The president has also repeatedly called the Russia probe a witch hunt and a hoax, though not recently. We don't know the full extent of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's probe. There's no way to know, but as plenty of reporters have noted, there are signs that he's looking into whether the president obstructed justice when he fired the former FBI director James Comey last March. Let's turn to Bob Bianchi, a former prosecutor, defense attorney. Bob, Bloomberg News is reporting that Mueller is close to wrapping up part of its investigation dealing with the obstruction question, but you heard this quote about fighting back.
Yeah, I think that this is very problematic, and every time Donald Trump opens his mouth, he's putting himself a little bit deeper into the investigation. Fighting back could be considered a corrupt purpose under the statute, and that could fulfill an obstruction charge. So I think that it's very reckless that he's even considering going, obviously, to speak to them.
It was a new line, though. I mean, he was very specific. There is no collusion. There is no collusion. And now he added this new thing, and I just wondered if that wasn't part of a defense strategy and what you thought of it.
Yeah, no, it could be, but you know, the golden rule is you don't say anything, because if it's a good defense strategy, it's better to launch it if you should be charged rather than let the prosecutors know ahead of time that that's what your strategy is, because they're going to be prepared to ask questions about what that exactly means. That's the problem, Shep.
You know, sometimes, and prosecutors will tell you the best times are when the big thing is right there in front of your eyes. For instance, when he was asked by NBC News about obstruction, he said right then and there, well, I had the Russia investigation on my mind when I fired him. I mean, what else do you need?
You know, listen, I said this the minute...
If you're a prosecutor.
Right. Well, the minute he fired Comey, in fact, I believe it was on Fox News at the time, and then gave the Lester Holt interview, and then afterwards the White House meeting with Kislyak, as well as the other Russians, and said the basis upon which he did it was because of the Russian investigation. I knew right there they were opening an obstruction of justice file right there, because if you are trying to impede an investigation and stop or go easy on Michael Flynn, which was what was being said at the time and what Comey testified in the hearing, then you're going to have a problem if you fired him for the reason of stopping that investigation. There's
the collusion part. We already know about that because of the way some of the other folks around him have been dealt with. There's the obstruction of justice part. What about this third part? The third matter that's involved there, and it appears to be with the prosecutors he's hired with money laundering.
Well, you know, listen, he's got a whole constellation of problems. And one of the things that I would do as a prosecutor is when he goes through that door, he does not know all the evidence, whether or not it's a financial crime, whether it's obstruction, whether or not it's collusion or something else. And not only that, he may also be putting his son or his son-in-law in jeopardy by answering questions as well. It is an extremely dangerous thing to do. And any defense lawyer, now that I do defense work, the last thing I want to do is bring a guy in for an interview, period, end of story.
Who are the wild cards? You've got to figure Mike Flynn is a wild card. We know Mike Flynn appears to be cooperating. He certainly doesn't want his son to get caught up in all of this. That's been made perfectly clear. There are other wild cards.
Shep, I've said this a while. Watch Reince Priebus.
Reince Priebus.
It's too quiet. Everything's a little too quiet out there. They are speaking to people that were in the know. They're speaking to people that may have jeopardy or people that may be jilted. And I think that that's a place that I would be looking at, as well as other people, of course.
We know about Manafort, and there are others. There's Steve Bannon, with whom he's not getting along famously.
Absolutely. And you'd be surprised as a prosecutor, you apply a little bit of pressure on somebody, or if somebody feels, you always go for the person that feels that they've been slighted. And they may just very well, especially if they have some legal jeopardy, say, hey, no mas, I'm willing to cooperate at this point. And that's where, again, Trump does not know whether or not those people are cooperating. So when he walks through that door and he starts giving statements, whether it's under oath or it's not under oath, and they have statements from other people or emails or text messages that disprove it, he could be down a very slippery slope, Shep.
If the FBI is interviewing you, correct me if I'm wrong, it doesn't matter if you're under oath or not. It's the FBI. And if you lie, that's perjury.
Well, if you lie...
Not that he would, but I'm saying...
It's a false statement, like what happened with Manafort, okay? So it's not necessarily a perjury charge because it's not under oath.
It's criminal.
But it is a criminal offense, no question about it.
Bob Bianchi, former prosecutor, defense attorney. Thank you, sir.
You got it, Shep.